You know, there's a dimension of the Jussie Smollett case that I think a lot of people are missing. I don't know how to put this politely. He's a gay black Jew. Like, just by his very nature of being, like, he is a threat to the white power structure. It's like, hold on. You're telling me that there's a guy and that people are saying that he's guilty of stuff and he's in jail despite there being no evidence that he committed any crime or lied to the police. And you're also telling me that he is a gay black Jew? Possible. Clearly whoever said that must be trying to start a racial hate crime hoax themselves. How could someone hate a gay black Jew? It's impossible that a gay black Jew would ever become the victim of a racial hate crime because we have a perfectly equal society, equal protection under the law. We are liberals. Everything must be fine. Do you ever do this to a white guy, by the way? What they do to Jussie Smollett? They're like, oh, you think you're attacked by a white guy? Was it a white guy? Was it a black guy? Huh, pussy? Was it a white guy? Black guy? Keep your story straight. No, they only do that to a gay black Jew. It's like, oh, I heard there's this guy and they're saying he's guilty and he's in jail and no one can really explain why. They're like, oh, I would bet $1 million that he's a gay black Jew. Say he was found guilty by a jury of his peers. Like, what are his peers? Remember, he's a gay black Jew. I didn't see Shel Silverstein, James Baldwin, RuPaul, and Lenny Kravitz on that jury. And the same people will say Jussie Smollett is a race-baiting, narcissistic liar. It's like, and you believe he was tried by a jury of his peers. What, are all people on the jury, all 12 people, are race-baiting, narcissistic liars? Okay, well then maybe you have a chance of a fair trial. Here's another thing I'm trying to understand about the Jussie Smollett case. It's like, he's a rich, gay, black Jew. Sorry to sound repetitive, but like, in what world was he not going to be treated as a social outcast and pariah and be put in jail with no evidence of the things that he's allegedly guilty of and never prove that he lied to the police? It's like, most people in the country are either Democratic or Republican voters. You ask the average Republican, hey, there's this guy who people say made a hoax of a fake racial hate crime. And they'll be like, oh, tell us more about him. It's like, he's a gay black Jew. And they'll be like, fuck him. You ask the average Democrat, oh, there's this guy who's a gay black Jew and has been accused of faking racial hate crimes. And they'll say, tell us more about him. It's like, oh, he's rich. They'll be like, fuck him. There was never a world for a rich gay black Jew, not in America. If you've been watching my last few Jussie Smollett videos, you might be wondering, what are you talking about, Joe? Why are you saying Smollett never made any attempt to identify the race of his attackers until after people started insisting that the Osundairo brothers were the ones who did it? Well, I mean, exactly that. In the Good Morning America interview, the interviewer showed him a video of two guys walking in the neighborhood and just covered in all black. You can't see their faces. And Smollett says, yeah, those are definitely the guys who attacked me. And then it turns out they were the Osundairo brothers. He didn't know his attackers were black until later on, after he had initially reported the attack to the police. I believe it's possible that at the time that he reported the attack to the police, he either didn't know what race his attackers were, or he thought they were white, or he just saw a black ski mask with paler skin underneath it. Maybe it could have been a black guy, maybe a white guy. Maybe he didn't know. Getting some comments on my Jussie Smollett videos saying that essentially it's impossible to rape Jussie Smollett in prison because you can't rape the willing, which carries with it the implication that somehow Jussie Smollett, if he did commit a crime, then when he committed a crime, that reflected a choice, a will, a desire, a volunteering on Jussie Smollett's part to get raped in prison. That's the theory. So this is going to breed a culture, is going to give rise to a culture where people say and believe and speak and raise their children to think things like, if you get arrested, it's your own fault. If you get killed and tortured in prison, it's your own fault. If you get raped in prison, it's your own fault. You shouldn't have been in there in the first place. Instead of having a discussion about why so many victimless crimes can carry with them a felony sentence that can have your right to defend yourself taken away, put in jail. In the late 60s, Charles Manson and the Manson family, with those 4 sets of murders, it wasn't just 1 or 2, there's 4 different sets of murders. The prosecutor, Vincent Bugliosi, tried to say that Manson told his followers to do what they did, that is, commit crimes that they could make look like were done by black people, like pinning on black people. Bugliosi said that they did this to try to start a race war where the white people would emerge victorious because of Manson's understanding of the White Album. Thought the Beatles were trying to communicate with him through the lyrics. I don't believe there's any proof that he actually thought that. I think maybe they were trying to make it look like that. I don't know. But the point is, I'm trying to talk about race wars here. When the media and the cops, I think they want there to be a race war. If they didn't want there to be a race war, why every time when there's like a trial of a famous person or a trial of a crime that has anything to do with race or a trial of a black person, they always say, if the trial concludes, it could end in a race war. Like the Jussie Smollett trial is going to end in a race war. If we let the Kyle Rittenhouse trial conclude, then it's going to end in a race war. It's like, I understand that it kind of happened with, Manson, maybe wanted to happen in the early 90s with the LA Watts riots. That was in reaction to the beating of that Rodney King in LA. Like, I get that you think a race war is going to happen, but if you keep talking about it, 30 years past the LA riots in the early 90s, like, no one wants to start a race war. The more you say, the more you go on TV and say, this trial is going to end in a race war. This trial is going to end in a race war. We got to be ready to cover the race war when the trial's over. Like, you remember what they did in Kyle Rittenhouse case? Everyone was acting like it's going to start a race war the second the trial's over. The people in the media who are saying it's going to start a race war are the same people who stand to benefit and profit from covering that race war. The same people who cover the trials. And in fact, if you scare people into thinking that if a trial concludes, it's going to conclude in a race war, people are going to be scared out of giving people trials. We're not going to have trials anymore. You give people trials so that you don't have a race war. And you don't spend all your fucking energy saying the justice system's corrupt because he's going to end in a fucking... Like, you're just scaring the shit out of people. You guys got to stop watching CNN. CNN pays airports to play CNN in the airport so the people who are stuck waiting for a plane have no choice but to watch CNN. They're sensationalists. They want bad things to happen as a result of other bad things happening. That's why there's a fucking international conflagration that U.S. is probably supporting both sides of. We helped rig those Russian elections in the 90s. I don't know if you know that. Who's criticizing my view of Jussie Smollett. Again, I think he's innocent. I think he did not pay the brothers to attack him. I think they came up with the idea to attack him by themselves because they were already, one was on the show with him, Empire, he was an extra, and then they were training him. The fact that he knew them doesn't prove that he commissioned the attack. It just proves that they were friends with him up until the attack. It can't prove the attack happened. Camera wasn't on. But the camera not being on doesn't prove the attack didn't happen. The sandwich not being damaged doesn't prove the attack didn't happen. The sandwich not being damaged doesn't prove that the sandwich was bought at the airport. The sandwich has nothing to do with the attack. You don't put black people or anyone in jail when there's no evidence that they should stay in there. That's why he's out. So if you think I'm wrong, then explain why he's out of jail. It's because he's innocent. To the people who are saying, why are you wasting your time with this? Because you don't put people in jail where they could get raped and don't have the right to defend themselves unless you have some pretty convincing, compelling evidence that they actually did what they're accused of. So there's no evidence that kept Smollett in jail. There's nothing against him. There's just the claims of the police, and they say that when they went on a ride, the Smollett and the Osundairo brothers, they went on this ride to this place, and they talked about this. It's like, well, I haven't heard any audio that proves that they said what the cops claim they said. I haven't seen any transcripts that prove they said what the cops say they said. We're all just taking the police's word. Police who previously were hated by the kind of right-wingers who would hate Jussie Smollett for his race and his homosexuality, for coddling black people and being corrupt. It's like, well, the same Chicago police that you think are coddling black people are now, just as they has always been, putting black people in jail with no evidence. So just to repeat, the only so-called evidence proving that Smollett fabricated the attack or told the brothers what to do is from after the attack. The text that I'm talking about, he said, I know that you guys are not guilty. 100% or 1,000% or something. He says to the guys after the attack, I know it wasn't you. My theory is they attacked him and he couldn't come to terms with how stupid he was for trusting them right up until the attack. You know, if there are texts from Jussie Smollett to the Osundairo brothers saying, attack me at this time, I'm going to be late, my flight's late, as the cops claimed, they should be able to show us those texts. Or they should be able to show us, you know, transcripts of them or transcripts of audio tapes from the phone calls. I want some actual evidence besides just taking on the cops' word. We need to take Jussie Smollett's $120,000 away from him so we can give it back to the city so we can redistribute it to the community. You tell me there's no reason why leftists would agree to corroborate the police's story? You're telling me there's no reason why a black man, the only black man on that jury, would agree to corroborate the police's story? Because they were scared shitless. Anyone who doesn't believe Chicago should just take Jussie Smollett's money, $120,000. He obviously lied, even though there's no evidence he lied. They took his money, and that's billable hours. People have to be paid to investigate. You expect city workers to just do work for no money? It's like, yes, I do, because they take an oath to protect and serve. But guess what? They don't really have a duty to protect and serve, because in Warren versus D.C., 81, Supreme Court ruled police have no duty to protect and serve. So now they're just fucking putting us in jail for no evidence. Let's not forget, people say, oh, Jussie Smollett needs to reimburse the Chicago police. Oh, it's so important that the Chicago police get reimbursed. You're talking about the second best funded city police department in the entire country. Chicago's number 2 after New York. But they need Jussie Smollett's $120,000. They have tanks, okay? Major city police departments have tanks and drones. They have the FBI's financial sources funding them. They have the military's financial sources funding them. Like Chicago police, they have like local, state, federal police integration centers. There are reports of tanks being rolled into Chicago in spring of 2020 when the pandemic started. Like, they have lots of resources. They don't need Jussie Smollett's $120,000 that badly. Black person's name is mispronounced by a white person. It's super not okay among progressives and liberals. I mean, we know why. Because if someone does it on purpose, it's really disrespectful. And if they do it on accident, it's like you shouldn't care enough to want to know how to pronounce a person's name correctly. But somehow, when you purposely pronounce Jussie Smollett's name incorrectly as Jussie Smollett or Juicy Smoothie or whatever, somehow that's super okay, and you should do that. So basically, it's fun to defame Jussie Smollett and mock him and base everything you know about him off of a comedy bit made by a comedian who was probably 1,000 miles away at the time, was not there. In fact, misquoted what Smollett said about his attackers. He never said they wore MAGA hats. Chappelle said he said they wore MAGA hats. It's not true. So everyone thinks it's fun to just mock and defame Jussie Smollett, including the Osundairo brothers. Even the judge who sentenced Smollett said, I don't think you did this for money. You were making $2 million a season, $2 million a year on that show. So why would he, he wouldn't do it for money. But I think the Osundairo brothers would do it for money. As I've been saying from the start, I think they did it. They racketeered him to try to get him to be willing to pay more for physical training, because they manufactured a fake threat against him when they wrote a letter 10 days before the attack with a stick figure of him dying in a noose, Jussie Smollett. So that was obviously written by the Osundairo brothers. No one really gives a shit. So here's what I've been saying. Federal judge allows defamation claims in Jussie Smollett's suit. See, Jussie Smollett's lawyers are suing the Osundairo brothers for basically saying that they were paid to help him stage a hate crime. Which, by the way, if they agreed to help him stage a crime, why is it that they weren't charged with anything? You'd think they'd be charged with something. Mark Garagos, Smollett's former attorney, said that it's possible that the very dark-skinned brothers might have put makeup on to disguise their color. And that could have been why Jussie Smollett had difficulty pinpointing their race. And that's probably why he didn't say what he thought their race was the first time he spoke to police and made a report. Glandian, that was a later Smollett attorney who appeared on Mark Garagos' show. So it's possible that Smollett described the attackers as pale or light-skinned just in comparison to the black cotton ski mask that they were wearing. All he could see of their skin was the area around their eyes. That's why it was difficult for him to guess their race. That's why what he said about their race has been widely misquoted and had lots of different reporting. So this defamation case is going forward. Smollett was found guilty, so it'll probably be successful. Listen to this. It's from Fox News.
Osundairo, two brothers who testified that they had participated in the elaborate hoax, claiming that one lawyer on the defense team defamed the pair when she suggested they had been wearing white vests while carrying out of the ordeal.
Did you hear that? She suggested they had been wearing white vests. Wait, what? Did they mispronounce whiteface? White-a-vass? That's not a word. It's pretty white of us to mispronounce that. So why is the reporter pronouncing whiteface white-a-vass? Is this a robot recording? I listened to it. It sounds like it's a human. So why aren't they taking care to pronounce whiteface correctly? Do they perhaps, I don't know, not want you to remember that it's possible that Smollett's attackers were wearing whiteface under their black cotton ski mask? Osundairo brothers' defamation lawsuit against Jussie Smollett. Smollett's attorneys have countersued the Osundairo brothers. This is a recent article from Rolling Stone, Jussie Smollett and the Osundairo brothers' defamation war. The new lawsuit further alleges the Osundairo brothers sought to exploit their involvement in Smollett's alleged attack for shameless self-promotion and monetary gain. That's like a guilty conscience kind of thing. You'd think if they weren't guilty, they wouldn't, be so brazen as to try to make money off of it. And it fits what I'm saying. They're trying to make money off it. It claims that when their brothers' allegations against Garagos did not pan out, they tried to monetize their newfound infamy by launching an NFT collection, that's non-fungible token, depicting a Subway restaurant renamed as Subday, a hardware store, not unlike the Crafty Beaver where the brothers bought the tools used in the attack, and a black Mercedes-Benz with a red hat on its dashboard, like the red hat they were wearing during the attack, possibly. The brothers also used Instagram accounts to sell $60 red baseball caps featuring a play on the MAGA. It's like, yeah, if Smollett is guilty, then he has defamed the Osundairo brothers. But if he's not guilty, then it's the Osundairo brothers and Dave Chappelle who should be sued for defaming Jussie Smollett. A couple more things about the Jussie Smollett case. Let me show you an article here. This might be backwards. This is from LA Times. So they actually got Jussie Smollett's grandmother to come in and testify on his behalf. She called the media portrayal of her grandson a betrayal that doesn't match up with the man she knows. She says, if you send him to prison, send me along with him. And another thing, the judge called Smollett arrogant, narcissistic, and selfish to his face. This is another way of calling him uppity. Like, he seems arrogant because you believe he's guilty, and he's not. He's adamant that he's not guilty. There's a difference between being adamant that you're not guilty, adamant about your innocence, and being arrogant and selfish and narcissistic. He's not selfish. If he did it, he would be selfish. If he's not guilty, then explains why he's acting this way, putting his fist in the air. This is from RollingStone.com. As the Chicago Tribune reports, the Osundairos began cooperating not long after Smollett allegedly sent a text to Abimbola on February 14th, 2019. Now that's 16 days after the attack, remember this, which some interpreted as an attempt to secure the Osundairos' silence. Brother, I love you. I stand with you. I know 1,000% you and your brother did nothing wrong and never would. I'm making this statement so everyone else knows. They will not get away with this. Please hit me when they let you go, and then hit me up. Get in touch with me when you get out of jail. I'm behind you fully. So this was written on February 14th, 2019. It must have been at a time when Smollett still thought the Osundairo brothers were not guilty. Possible that while he was talking to the police, he might have realized that the Osundairos are the people who attacked him, but he might have just realized that the people who attacked him were the same people who sent him the threatening letter 10 days before, and he might not have put it together that it was the Osundairo brothers until 2 weeks later. Or he might have suspected them all along and is just trying to reassure them because he maybe didn't completely, he wasn't sure whether it was them, didn't want to say for sure. It's like, who the fuck would dress up with red hats and say the N-word and the F-word? This is the text that people point to say that Jussie Smollett planned the attack. It's like, first of all, it was written 2 weeks after the attack. This is not evidence of planning the attack. The evidence of planning an attack, if it exists, would become before the attack. Not on February 14th, which is 16 days after January 29th, 2019, when the attack happened. Saying I think you're not guilty is not the same as saying, hit me here and do this to me. It's bullshit. Hey, did you hear what the fuck I just said? Did you see that text? Jussie Smollett said to the Osundairo brothers on February 14th, 2019, he said, hit me when you get out. Like, hit me when you get out of jail. But he didn't mean hit me as in hit me at 2 in the morning on January 29th, 2019 in a fake racial hate crime attack. He is a half black man who, again, is a gay black Jew, Jussie Smollett, and he texted the Osundairo brothers saying, I know 1000% you are not guilty. Hit me when you get out. As in the black slang, African American slang, hit me up, which means get in touch with me, get in contact with me, text or call me back. That's what Jussie Smollett meant when he said, hit me. I love you. I stand with you. I know 1000% you and your brother did nothing wrong and never would. I'm making this statement so everyone else knows. They will not get away with this. Please hit me when they let you go, as in behind you fully. So this me when they let you go, as in hit me up, get in touch with me when you get out of jail. I guess white Chicago prosecutors don't know African American slang. Hit me up and hit me, which is short for hit me up, apparently, means get in touch with me. So these people want to pretend, the people who are prosecuting Jussie Smollett want to pretend that because he texted the Osundairo brothers on February 14th, 2 weeks after the attack, more than 2 weeks, saying hit me after you get out. He was saying hit me up after you get out of jail. He wasn't saying hit me 16 days ago. That would be a violation of past and future tense rules in grammar and also time travel. Like, he was saying 2 weeks after the attack, I know you guys aren't guilty. That is not at all proof that he fabricated the attack. And I now suspect that that phrase, hit me, which is short for hit me up, I'm starting to suspect that that was misinterpreted, perhaps deliberately, perhaps not deliberately, by white prosecutors. I don't know who did it. I think people are taking this out of context and saying hit me must mean, oh, hit me. But again, the text was sent on February 14th, 2019, 16 or 17 days after the attack. You get it? White Chicago prosecutors don't know African American slang. They would never be able to guess that hit me doesn't mean physically punch me in the face. He has a scar from that. He described it as a bag under his eye. He says it could ruin his acting career because he doesn't look as good as he used to. He's worried about this shit. Like, this is real, folks. Look at the text. Hit me up from 2 weeks after the attack doesn't mean punch me in the face 2 weeks ago. Okay? Read the evidence in the case. I've seen no transcript indicating anything from before the attack, which would indicate, a ride along or a plan to stage the attack.